Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hi, I'm Terry Long.
And I'm Jeremy Eden, and we are the co-CEOs of Harvest Earnings.
Welcome to the Elephant in the Boardroom. Jeremy.
Hey, Terry.
I'm sure you saw the news that Amazon is saying at the beginning of 2025 that they're requiring everybody back into the office 5 days a week.
Yep.
So we want to talk some about the back to the office trend. And there are a few things that we think are elephants in the boardroom that are very negative about why companies are wanting people back. Now, we aren't saying that Amazon has these reasons, but they might. And so this isn't anybody, in particular, but we know these things are out there and they exist. So in terms of Amazon, lots of people are saying that this is just a way to force people to quit, that they want a significant reduction in force. And if they do this, they will get people leaving and they won't have to pay severance and they won't have to, do the big layoff. Now, we find it hard to believe, although we do see a lot of companies doing something similar, which is just offering packages to people. And what's similar about that is you don't know who's going to leave. So you don't want your best people to leave now, do you? No.
You do not.
You want, your low performers or the area that, has not seen growth and you're overstaffed, whatever. But, so if they are in fact doing it to make people leave, that is a silly decision that will backfire, because who's going to get a job fastest? The best people, of course.
Yeah.
So very, very bad way to go about that if it's true. Now, it's of course not what they're saying, although they did not say a whole lot. They kind of said, oh, well, the culture is better and collaboration is better, which, is true, but doesn't mean you have to go to 5 days a week.
Absolutely
So,
not.
one, that's the first bad reason. The second bad reason, and I don't know, I just get this sense every now and then. It's sort of like we walked barefoot in the snow, uphill to school every day. Quit your bitching, millennials or whomever, and get your butt into the office because we suffered through it and you should too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's not that much of it, because most of the top of the house, they like a day or two at home too. But anyway, I think that's a thing that happens at least a little bit. Third and final bad elephant in the boardroom is that there are some people at the top of the house who are very social beings and want the interaction that they get in the office, particularly if they're at the top of the house. You get a lot of glory, you get a lot of positive reinforcement. The saying the CEO never has a cold cup of coffee. There's more to it than that, but well, the end of it is, and never gets the whole truth, but we'll talk about that another time. But, never gets a cold coffee. So, it's fun being the CEO and coming into the office at least when things are good. It might not be so fun if you're, I don't know, Boeing and doors are flying off your planes. But those are three. I shouldn't laugh at that, although nobody got hurt. So, well, maybe the Boeing stockholders.
We fly Boeing a lot, so,
We definitely do. Anyway, so those are three really bad reasons to bring people back into the office. Now, we do think there are wonderful reasons to bring people back to the office. But to state it up front, just so my son, first of all, doesn't go nuts, we do not think 5 days back in the office is the right answer.
Right.
Do you want to talk about the benefits of going into the office?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Well, nice talking to you, everybody. See you next week.
Yeah. Obviously, I am not in the office, but but when we do projects, of course, wherever they are, even at the when COVID was still coming to a close, but it was still a threat, we made sure our teams were in the client's office all the time. So first, going back to your point about the 5 days, there is absolutely nothing magic about 5 days. And in fact, in the 1800s, people worked essentially 7 days.
Which is just mind-boggling, by the way. Can you imagine? And as you said earlier, it's not that far away, but 7 days a week, never a day off. I mean,
Right.
what pure drudgery and misery.
And in those days, most of the jobs were not sitting at your desk working on your laptop in 1870.
Yeah, good point.
They were tough, tough, tough jobs. It wasn't until really the 30s and Ford instituted 5 days a week. And then in the 40s, when the government started doing some things that made the weekend kind of an isolated non-work period. So there's no magic about it. It could be 4 days a week, could be 3 days a week. But the point is that 0 days a week for most jobs in most companies is a bad idea. And in fact, there's a lot of jobs, of course, that, there's no bakery where they can just work at home 0 days a week. So, and even Amazon's been having 5 days a week or 7 days a week, whatever it is, in their warehouses the whole time. But a lot of the jobs that could in theory be done at home and are being largely done at home now, it's those that we're talking about. And if you do things at home, you lose out on a huge number of benefits. Yes, there's the commuting cost of time and money. Yes, there's, having to put on maybe slightly nicer clothes. Yes, there's that you aren't there to pick up your kid from school, which I think is a huge benefit and actually improves morale and efficiency in some ways, and you can't do that. But there's all sorts of other benefits you get those 2 or 3 days if the company structures that time in a way that takes advantage of being in the office. Yeah. So if you're just sitting in your empty cubicle and nobody's around and you've had to go into the office, okay, sure, that's pretty much a really bad decision.
This is a huge complaint, I think, particularly from a lot of the younger people.
Yeah.
They come into the office, and now, because of the way things are structured, they may or may not even have a set desk to go to. So They're coming in, they don't necessarily have their good setup. I mean, so if you're like me or Shannon, you need your setup exactly right? And so I have 2 monitors. I have the camera. I have everything exactly the way I want it. And that helps me be productive. But lots of people, they're going in and they're, I'm sharing this desk perhaps, or I don't even know what desk I'm at this time. And anyway, yeah, go on.
I don't even know the kids in that picture that's been left on the desk, but they seem cute. I'm sure they're nice. Well, yeah, and in fact, there's a lot of people who don't want to be at home all the time, right? There is something refreshing and invigorating. I mean, there is a reason before COVID that people went into the office, and there were a lot of people that liked a lot of that, a whole different kind of social life, a whole different kind of, persona that you might have, a change in the demands that are on you so your mind can rest with one set of demands or another set of demands by focusing on something else. So there's a lot of advantages being in the office. But even before COVID, even before working at home was a big thing, we used to hear all the time how people completely were frustrated and wasted time, for example, in meetings. Meetings that went on too long, they didn't make decisions, they didn't take advantage of people. So sure, if that's kind of what your workday feels like, well then screw it, I'd rather be at home and, just get on the Teams call, do my thing, get off, and whatever.
Yeah. So one of the things we know that companies get very wrong about this is they will say, okay, employees, you need to come in 2 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever it is, but you pick which days. So on the one hand, that sounds great, it's flexible. So if somebody 1 week, I have a doctor's appointment on Tuesday, whatever, or I don't feel like going in today, or traffic's bad. But if you're randomly going in, then you're missing out on potentially seeing the people that it's important for you to be in the office to see.
Yeah.
So we know some companies will say, okay, your team, you're going in on Mondays and Tuesdays, and
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, if you think about sports where people achieve great things and push themselves and provide entertainment, they do it because, on Sunday, the football game starts at that time and all the players show up. Some don't say, hey, the center doesn't say, hey, I'm in on Fridays. And the quarterback says, well, Mondays are going to be better for me. You know, there are many things in which the physical interaction of people lead to different set of emotions, to more productivity, to more communication, to better communication. Like we know that people barely read emails. You like to say no one reads the third sentence of a 3-sentence email.
I do.
Yeah, it's hard, when you're on Teams or Zoom or something and you're a little square and someone else is a little square. Oh, and by the way, I have Amazon on another monitor and I have my email on my third monitor and I'm kind of paying attention. That is a completely different experience than walking down the hallway and sticking your head in someone's office and saying, by the way, could you just give me a quick update on so-and-so? And by the way, that may lead to also a little discussion about the movie you saw this weekend if you're, have that kind of relationship with somebody. And so the communication can be richer, business-wise, productivity-wise, and emotionally, socially.
Yeah. So I think if there's a couple of things that maybe we would say companies should do to both to utilize the time in the office, but maybe also to better use the time when people aren't in the office. So I think we did something really well at one point in time. This was during COVID. Well, I don't know if it was COVID, but we were setting up a project and we hadn't yet been on site, but we were using Teams and we had a room that you and I were just in, and it was a free drop in. We just conducted our, we just had it up as if we were just sitting in an office somewhere. We were just there. And you knocked on the door and you came in. It was like we kind of had an open door policy, and people could come in and ask the quick question. I mean, that's what gets so lost oftentimes, I think, with being at home, is that popping out and sticking your head in and saying, hey, can I do blah, blah, blah? Or who should I talk to about this? You maybe wait on that, or you put that aside because it doesn't feel like it rises to the level of interrupting somebody
Yeah.
at home. It's just, it doesn't make sense, but it's a different dynamic.
Go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead.
And even you want to grab lunch, you want to get a cup of coffee. It could be to talk about business, but it feels different and it's a richer communication. And a lot of what people think about as work is the immediate task. Okay, we have to write this PowerPoint. We can do that on video conferencing and we can all sit and decide what that slide will be. But a lot of business is about decision making and learning and being curious. And often that involves attributes like trust. I want to trust the person that I'm talking to about this subject, that I respect them. I understand, I know if they're giving me an opinion, there's some substance there that I should explore. Those kinds of trust and liking and respect and other things that might lead to better work, promotions, more opportunities, being asked to be on a special project that you didn't even know about. Those things do not come very readily from being a little square in a Teams meeting.
Well, and our pet peeve is a little square with the camera off.
Yes, then you're a little circle and you're a little square.
Come on, people, turn your cameras on. I mean, if you're not important to a meeting and you think, well, I'll just put my camera off and I'll half listen while I multitask, just don't attend the meeting. But if you should attend the meeting, show your face. So at least it's a facsimile of what it's like if you were sitting around a conference room.
Yeah.
So have your team, have a team or a group as much as possible coming on the same days. I think having, if you're coming in 2 days a week, have a team lunch one of those days. I mean, Joey's team actually does this. My kiddo. I think on Tuesdays they have a team lunch, and so that's set. So it's not just come in randomly and then catch as catch can. So you take the opportunity for those in-person days to do some informal bonding or just communicating.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about this at my book club the other night. Had nothing to do with the book at all, but we were saying how important it is, particularly for the younger set, to just sort of overhear the conversations out on the floor of, how does the salesperson address this? Or you just learn by being there to some extent. And that mentoring, that informal it's not even mentoring. It's just, being around good things happening doesn't happen if you're sitting at home. But I do have a funny story to tell about overhearing conversations. So somebody brought this up at book club and I'm like, oh, I've got to tell this story. So I will not name the place. I will not name the person, but we're basically a group of bankers who were sitting out on a floor. And not even cubicles back then. It was just sort of rows of desks. So we all hear each other's conversations all day long. So there was this one guy who was actually wonderful, and he was probably one of the best salespeople. He calls up a prospect, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? What's new? How's the year going? And did you buy that piece of equipment? And blah blah blah." And then there's a pause, and he says, well, I'm going to change his name. Bob Smith from XYZ Bank. So the person he had been talking to, like it was his best friend, didn't know who the heck he was. Anyway, I digress. So,
by the way, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So your book club, by the way, is a good example of this. I wonder how many book clubs in America, and there must be, a million of them, literally, or anyway, some very, very large number. How many people choose to do their book club by video conferencing, by Zoom, versus getting together in person?
Yeah. So my book club's been going on, I think we're about to hit 8 years. So we did go through COVID, and we did move to Zoom during the COVID years. And we still occasionally have people on Zoom because as we've, grown in age, some people have moved further away, or they spend the winters in someplace with better weather than Chicago, and they'll maybe Zoom in. But it's far inferior. I mean, it just is. And we the other day we talked a little bit about the book, and then we sort of just moved on to life. And in Zoom, it would have been more likely that we'd talk about the book, and then we go, all right, well, thanks everybody. See you next time. Because that's just it is.
People think too much, and this is probably ironic given how our projects are so task oriented. We create lots of tasks and very task focused, but so much of what goes on in business is not about just the task, about just transferring information. It is this much richer kind of communication, problem solving, chatting, talking, bonding, whatever it is. And whenever people have the choice of those kind of activities, they glom onto them. They like that, and companies shouldn't be resisting that. They should be leaning into that. But again, by making sure they're not wasting people's time when they actually come into the office.
Yeah. Well, another, I think, issue with, I think we've made it clear, but we're very against 5 days in, we're very against 0 days in. So we think somebody fully remote, that's really a loss, particularly for a young person. You are missing way too much. Yeah. But the hybrid is the best of all possible worlds. But I think we believe that some of the loneliness epidemic, particularly among the younger people, is this working from home? Because, I mean, once you're out of school, a lot of your relationships come from your employer. I mean, you're spending a lot of time with them. I mean, now less physically than it used to be, but you
Yeah.
have in common, and you spend your days in and out of conversations, and some problems, some work related, some maybe how was your weekend, but it's simple. Maybe it's not deep in many cases, although sometimes it is. I happen to have married somebody I worked with, but just sitting at home, you're not getting that.
No, no. And you said loneliness among the young, but it's really an epidemic among all ages. And certainly as people get older, it gets even worse for exactly the reason you said about your book club, right? People who you might have been friends with for a long time, now they've retired to, Florida or Utah or wherever, or they've, passed away or moved away, and we lose those connections. And the office provides, it's a little like Cheers, everyone knows your name. And Norm. And that, it doesn't mean that everyone has to like each other even. It's being involved in the social setting and maybe bitching about someone, but it turns out that's actually a little rewarding also, right? I mean, we are social creatures.
You're bonding over bitching. Yeah. So I guess we would say hybrid is the right answer. I mean, obviously, there are job exceptions. There's no what actually you were saying earlier, that it does seem like companies aren't customizing as much as they should for people and for roles, etc. And it's sort of a one size fits all. Like Amazon is just saying everybody come in 5 days a week, and why is that the right answer? So we would say, companies, take a hard look at your motivation for asking people to come in. Maybe do a little customizing of your back to office plan. And take advantage of the days that people are coming in. Keep teams coming in together, and make sure that you're actually spending time together. And make sure your facilities sort of are fit for purpose for this, because what I'm hearing is a lot of it's not. So you've got a important call that you've got to talk to somebody in India working on a project, and you're sitting in a bullpen, and everybody else is distracted having to hear your thing because you can't get a conference room because they're in super demand.
Can you hear me? You're frozen. You're frozen. Why am I doing this?
You're whispering.
You don't hold the handset anymore, but anyway.
No, we do not. Well, we do not. So, I think that's our advice on work from home. But everybody, other than special circumstances, think long and hard before you wish for 5 days sitting at home. Yes, it's nice to be in your pajamas and have the dog at your side. And there's mine staring out the window. But there's a lot to be lost.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cheers.
Back to work.
And Shana Tova?
Yes.
Maybe not by the time you're listening to this.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Bye.